The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
This week's episode of the FujiCast sees a slight departure from the normal format as the show comes out of the studio to visit Brighton in the UK, a seaside town on the south coast in East Sussex for anyone not au fait with the geography of these isles. Teeny bit of history of the place. It's about 50 miles south of London, dates back to the Bronze Age as a settlement, and much later in Victorian times became a fashionable holiday hub with pleasure piers and the kinds of hotels that still to this day serve orange juice on the menu as a breakfast starter. It has its own nod to the Taj Mahal by way of the Brighton Pavilion, just a street or two back from the seafront, built on the command of George IV, following advice from his doc that Brighton's sea air would be good for his gout, making him the first of two such celebrities to have been offered that advice, the second of course being our very own Kevin Mullin some 200 years later. The pavilion became a secret meeting place for the king, where he shared and later, not so secretly, married his mistress, Maria Fitzherbert, away from the prying concerns of the Roman Catholic Church. You can still get married at the pavilion, but these days with full permission in the eyes of the law, and in March 2014 the venue became one of the first to host a same-sex marriage, fitting as the town is now considered to support the UK's largest LGBT community, making for a pretty good social scene and vibrant nightlife. It's not all peace and love though, as Brighton is infamous for the mods and rocker clashes when life was only in black and white. The mods, wearing their sharp suits, button-down shirts and parka jackets, clash with the leather-clad rockers on the beach between the town's two main piers, in fights about the size of their motorbikes, I think. The mods favouring Italian-styled scooters, and rockers liking a few more CCs and classic oily Triumph bikes, which at the time you could buy for 20 quid. These days you get 2 plates of fish and chips for the same cash, but advisedly hide it from plain view of the gulls, who famously mug unsuspecting tourists in daring raids from above, making for interesting street photographs. Which neatly segues with this, the FujiCast's Listener Meetup in Brighton 2019. A chance to meet up with like-minded photographers, record an episode of the show on Brighton's famous Palace Pier, in the iconic Palm Court restaurant halfway out into the bay, and talk to 3 special show guests. Friend of the show, Sean Tucker, whose rising YouTube popularity saw him bring his own crew down to the town for the meetup too, though with rather less requirement to police the event like they did in Mods and Rockers days. No need to hold back Fujifilm and Sony shooters from one another, we all love each other. Really. Nick Turpin is one of the UK's most respected street shooters and established advertising design and editorial photographers, the man behind the first international collective of street photographers in public at the turn of the century. And Fujifilm's Laura Ross, marketing executive for the professional photographer team using the X and GFX series cameras in the UK. The show starts today though with a few thoughts on the beach just west of the pier between myself and Kev, basking in what feels like a little early autumn global warmth. Can you believe that, Kev? Look, 2 people swimming out there. Do you fancy it?
No. Look at them. Proper swimming. With their arms and everything, not just standing there.
Oh no, they're out their depth.
Yeah.
The other one all right, do you think? One's swimming, the other one just seems to be bobbing.
Yeah, well, he's swimming away from the other one, so yeah, I think they're all right. Stupid mind.
How many people do you think will come today?
2, 3.
Have you ever done a photo walkabout? You've done your workshops, but this is not a workshop.
Not really, not like a normal, just regular photo walk. It's normally a workshop, so we'll just wander. We'll wander along the beach, we'll wander up to the lanes.
What a day though, sunshine out. God, what a weird bloke that we met last night though, in the pub. Do you know, if anybody ever is worried about the fact that as a wedding photographer that people they're a bit sort of aloof to you or you're not worthy, that guy last night, what was his story?
I don't know. We were just chatting to him and his wife, nice enough, and then suddenly he just stood up. He said to Neil, "What do you do?" Neil said, "I'm a wedding photographer." And he said to his wife, "Come on, we're going," and walked out. And that was it.
They're photographers. You showed him your X100F. The look of terror in his eyes.
I know. Yeah, I reckon he's a spy or something. He saw the camera and he was like, "Oh no, they're press." Yeah, that's what it was. He's like
2 press photographers with 1 X100F between them.
yeah, which wasn't even on or pointed at them.
No. He probably thought it could look round corners. Anyway. Welcome to Brighton.
The FujiCast.
We were a little bit concerned, weren't we, that maybe only 3 people would turn up.
Yeah.
You, me, and Steve, who's doing some stuff here.
And we didn't really want him to come.
Yeah. And look how many people are here! Oh, well, thank you very much all for coming to this this meet-up. We're ordering food, drinks, and we're gonna answer some questions. We did say it was going to be a special edition. We're going to answer the questions that you've sent in, but not too many today, because we also want to open it up to the audience so that they get a chance to ask the questions. We've got Sean Tucker here, who you heard on the show recently. We've got Nick Turpin, who's hiding right at the back over there. Who's going to answer some questions on street photography, and Laura's here from Fujifilm as well. So, and she's going to sing the theme tune. So, Laura, if you like, no.
I've never seen you go that colour before.
All right, so we'll start with questions. I always ask Kev, do you want to go first or me? What do you want to do?
You go first.
Okay. So, hey Neil and Kev, hope you're both well. Here's my question. I'm sitting outside house for an art lover in Glasgow after a wedding, where I've been shooting since 10:30 a.m. It's now 10 p.m. This sort of day that you do, Kev, isn't it? You do these mammoth long days. Nothing unusual, but as I sit in the car, I'm about to do what I always do and get some music on. It got me wondering, so a nice light question to start with. How do you guys, one, prep in the car for a wedding? Do you listen to music, and if so, what gets you going? I find good music gets me fired up for the day ahead, something like Oasis, U2, some dance music. Kev, it's got to be country music for you, isn't it, really?
No, I listen to audiobooks all the way.
Do you? No music?
And I have a ritual that 15 minutes before I reach my destination, I have to listen to Radio 3.
Radio 3?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I thought it was just non-stop Dolly Parton in your car.
No, not on wedding days.
So, second question. He said, on the way home, do you listen to something relaxing, or do you enjoy the silence on both journeys? Well, we already know now it's not silence for you, but you like you did a mammoth long journey the other day, didn't you, in Ireland? You did like 4 hours. In fact, you didn't sleep for 32 hours.
39 hours.
39 hours.
Yeah, so on Saturday, this is why I'm looking a little bit jaded now still.
Right.
On Saturday, I started at 7 a.m. in the morning, started shooting at 10 a.m., shot through till 11 p.m. This was in West Cork. Got in the car, drove for 4.5 hours to Dublin, dropped my hire car off, got the 6 a.m. flight back to Bristol, got home, and then Gemma said, I have to go to the hospital because her father-in-law's unwell. You're going to have to look after the kids. I'll be back on Monday. So I ended up going to bed with the kids at 9:30 at night, 41 hours later or something.
Are you looking for sympathy from everybody?
No, I'm not. You just asked me that question.
Well, all right. We'll have an argument about it. I thought maybe we'd open this up and see what other people listen to when they're working. So Steve's going to rove with a roving microphone. Anybody want to share what they listen to in the? Let's see. Don't be shy. This is not a silent cast. It's a podcast.
I tend to listen to Marabou State at the moment.
Marabou what?
Marabou State.
What's that?
A dance act, sort of not too intense, but kind of wakes you up enough if it's a early start, and on the way home, silence.
That sounds like something the youngsters listen to.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. No idea, never heard of anything
There's
like that.
a club across the road that you probably love tonight.
Do they get into the hit parade these days?
Nobody calls it the hit parade anymore.
Not quite in the top 40, no. But it's not not too much to think about. You can just kind of have it on, and so I don't like too much in that. I kind of like to focus on what I'm going to do instead of focusing on the music. So it's just something to sort of fill silence. Then on the way home, I tend to not listen too much. To kind of wind down.
So I met a filmmaker who actually listens to music during the day, and she said that it helps her get in this zone, and she finds that I don't know. Could you do that? Wear some headphones and you generally, because it's documentary, you're not necessarily being gregarious and chatting with people.
I do sometimes put my headphones on at weddings. After the first dance. Sometimes if I can't, if their music they've got is weird or something, I put my headphones on. Honestly, I do it. But it's and I just put like my whatever I'm listening to on quite loud. I don't do it that often, but I have done it.
So if it's not in the hit parade,
if it's not in the hit parade, then I'm not interested. Yeah.
Anybody else? Go on. There's Anna.
Basically, I cannot listen to anything on the way to a wedding. I have to have total silence because I'm scared and I need to just literally think about what I've got ahead.
Yeah.
At the end of a wedding, depending on how it's gone, I either want to burst into tears or I actually think I could literally go clubbing. It's like that feeling.
Burst into tears.
And then I burst into tears if it's been really long. I mean, if I'd done one like Kevin in the West Cork one, I would have been
Finished.
emotional by the end of that. I don't
emotional.
know if you were, Kevin. Were you emotional at the end of it, or just
I wouldn't use the word emotional.
You don't really do emotion, do you?
Not really,
No.
not very often.
maybe I'm too
tired.
emotional?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
No, I was tired and hungry.
Kev, you got a question? Go for it.
Okay. This is from David Holloway in Hertfordshire. I recently bought a Fujifilm X70 after watching one of your reviews on YouTube, as I was looking for a nice little compact camera to carry around to shoot the kids. And I love when everybody says that, shoot the kids,
yeah.
And use for street photography. However, since then I have seen a lot about the X100F and now thinking about either upgrading or adding it to my arsenal of gear. What extra can the X100F offer me that the X70 can't, and do you think it's worth holding on to the X70?
I always defer to you with that camera, because I don't have that camera. So
Yeah,
I mean, I
so-
have the X100F, but
Yeah, well, the X70, it's quite hard to get hold of it. We've spoken about this before,
Yeah.
but it's a beautiful camera. I would definitely keep both if you could. And I mean, I haven't got the X70 with me today. I've got the X100F, but the X70 is even smaller, slimmer. It's not as good in low light performance-wise. It's not as quick, perhaps, as the X100F. X100F is, kind of the newer sensor and everything.
Yeah.
So they're slightly different cameras, but yeah, I mean, both is the answer. I always say that. That's always my stock answer when it comes to X70, X100F. If you had to choose just one, then it would probably be the X100F.
Pete Johnson, hi Neil, Kev. Let's say you're stopping wedding photography, or to be honest, any kind of photography. You could be retiring, or just decided to stop, or you've won the lottery. If photography all of a sudden was going to be a passionate hobby, what would your gear bag look like? I thought it was a really interesting question, actually.
Yeah, no. Well, the thing is, it is still a passion, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just a job. That's the thing. So, I don't think I actually have any cameras. I mean, I have some old cameras that are no longer used that are not anything I would carry on using now, like the old XE cameras and stuff. But all of the ones that I have for a reason.
Yeah.
I'd like to get more into film photography. I've got my old film cameras that I never really do anything with.
Did you see,
Something like
talking
that.
of film, have you seen what Sean Tucker's brought with him?
I spotted
it's
it.
almost like somebody.
Yeah.
It's like that movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but it's gone the other way. That used to be a Fuji X100F, and it's become this huge, great. Sean, bring that camera over. Come and jump on the microphone at the end over there, because I'm fascinated by this camera. Because are you allowed to talk about you can talk about the project you're doing with it, or tell us what the camera is. Describe it for us.
And I brought this because apparently you weren't letting people in if they didn't shoot with Fuji's. Is that right? So I thought I have to bring it. It's a GW690, and it's the second version, so it's a 2.
Yeah.
It's a 6:9 negative, so it's medium format, but pretty much as big as a medium format neg can get. So you've got your medium format look, but you've also got your 3:2 aspect ratio, which most of us are used to, so it's quite nice. And I'm using it for, no light meter, it's all totally mechanical. You have to change your aperture, shutter speed, everything in the actual lens as well. So
As far as manual as it gets, yeah.
And it's a 90mm, which on 6:9 is roughly, it's about a 38mm equivalent. So it gives you like a perfect sort of 35-40mm environmental portrait thing. So at the moment I'm just shooting other photographers on it, portraits, to get used to it and testing a bunch of films and learning better how to develop film myself, because I've got a project coming up in the long run which is going to involve environmental portraits and spaces, and I'd like to do it on film just to do something different. But I'm not
The ones you showed me are terrific. That fall off is amazing, isn't it?
It's because it's a massive negative. So
Yeah.
what you're going to get out of a 90mm, and this goes down to 3.5.
Yeah.
On a full frame sensor on APS-C is one thing, but when you do a 6.45 negative on medium format, there's way more depth of field. But when you get a 6.9, it's huge. You're almost, someone said this is almost half of a 4x5. So you're almost, getting into that massive large format territory. It's pretty much as big as medium format goes.
Well, you certainly can't be, a shrinking violet with that camera on the side.
They call it the Texas Leica, because it looks like a Leica, but it's built like a brick. It's like massive. Yeah.
You could do serious damage to somebody with that.
Yeah.
While you're here, let's talk about social media and your YouTube channel.
Must we?
Yeah, let's do that. You've not completely changed direction, but you've gone a certain direction with the last few films of the interviewing. What's the thinking behind this?
I've always had a love for documentary, whether it's stills or video. It's something about me wants to be a storyteller.
Yeah.
So being able to bring together shooting video and telling stories has been great. So all I've done this year is I picked other photographers to do videos on, and I've done about 8 now. I started with my grandfather, he talked through.
That was a great film, yeah.
Yeah, it was lovely. And he sort of talked through his shots when he was in the Navy, 1945, 46, 47, through Japan, down through, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia. He's got shots in his album which show the fallout from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He took on a box brownie camera.
Yeah.
And just getting those stories from him was amazing. And that sort of triggered, I could be doing this more often. So I started to do films with other street photographers, Fiona Lark up in the Lake District, does these beautiful self-portraits. A friend of mine who does candid sort of, not candid, she asks people on the street for portraits on the street as well.
Yeah.
She rides around on a motorbike and lives out of a tent half the year doing that sort of thing. So just photographers who've got interesting stories or ways of working.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much my favourite sort of video I do now. I get the most out of it.
And is that a direction you're going to go now, or we will still see the philosophy? You know what I'm saying.
I know what you mean.
Philosophical.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, those ones, philosophy ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because these ones take a lot longer to put together.
Yeah.
Like filming something that's a documentary, getting that story stuff. It's filming the interview, and then it's getting a bunch of B-roll. So it'll take a day or two to film, and then half a week to a week to edit it together. I couldn't do those 2 a month. On top of everything else I'm doing, so I'll mix it in with other stuff. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a regular thing now.
I'm going to open up the floor a bit. Has anybody got any questions about social media, YouTube? Or sorry, Sean, I've sort of rather dumped this one on you there. But anybody got any questions for Sean at all with regard to YouTube? Over here, let's bring the mic to you.
Looking at your YouTube last night, I thought it was actually brilliant. You were in Rome. I think you was in Rome somewhere. You're talking about people being in shots, but not in a direct way. But it was fantastic. I just got to say that.
Yeah, I mean, my sort of style of doing street photography is absolutely because I'm a coward and I don't like confrontation with people. So I tend to shoot wider and step back. So I had the X100 for a while. I'm now on the Ricoh, which is basically a 28mm equivalent. And I like to sort of step back and shoot light in a space and shadow in a space that looks interesting. And whoever's walking through the shot is incidental. They're more for scale. So I'm technically I'm not really a street photographer. What I'm doing, I suppose. Nick will tell you, I'm not really a street photographer. I like sort of shapes and shadows and something more graphical. And if someone walks into the shot then and gets upset because they think I took their photograph, I can genuinely say, no, you walked into my photo, because I'm shooting the space and the subject is almost incidental in a way. So I kind of approach it slightly differently because of that. Yeah.
Kevin?
No, I think it's amazing that in the YouTube world that we live, where we're all on there, we've all been on there, and there is so much, and this is something I'm guilty of myself, so much kind of gear chasing and worrying about kind of the likes and follows and all that kind of stuff, and then it's just really refreshing to see like channels like yours where it's just about the integrity of it, and the honesty of everything, and I think that's really great, and it's something that I struggle with on the YouTube. I haven't done anything on YouTube for about 6 months purely because I'm just kind of at that point where I'm just thinking people just want me to talk about cameras, and the art form and the kind of pictures and everything seem to be secondary in that their opinions. And then when you do put stuff up there, you then get the trolls and everything, and they're painful, very painful, and you just have to deal with it. But it's just nice to kind of see different elements of your channel growing, and I think both Neil and I, we're on Messenger. You've seen Sean's latest new film.
How do you handle the negativity, the trolls? I mean, you did do something about it you talked about this on your channel.
I think it just helps to remember where it comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who trolls you is almost certainly another creative who is angry that they're not getting the attention that you're getting. It's a jealousy thing often, and I don't say that like I'm a big deal, because I don't think I am, but if you know it comes from there, you can actually, because I can remember when I was frustrated and I didn't go out trolling people just because I'm an introvert. That's not my personality, but I felt that frustration, and I felt like I would pick apart other photographers or other people who were getting the attention I felt I wanted, and sort of pull their work apart in my head. And it was just a game. If I can't get there, I'll try to pull them back a bit, even if it's just... So you're just dealing with somebody who feels the need to drag you back a bit because they're angry they're not getting that. And sometimes you actually don't know who you're dealing with. You might be dealing with someone with mental illness, sitting at home, like living with their parents still. For me to jump back on there and start attacking them and bullying them, which is easy to do because I've got this crowd behind me, I'm an ass now. Like that's not a nice thing to do. And when you know that's where it comes from, I think it's easier to sort of put it in the right box in your head and not take it seriously. I mean, no one's going to say anything to me that I don't already know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, oh, you messed up this shot. I knew I messed up that shot way before you picked it up. Like I already know where I made mistakes here or did things wrong. And a lot of the trolling will be about gear. I mean, you know, it'll be about you should use this camera, or why are you doing things this way, or your technique with that, or whatever. It's very. The other thing I say is like you won't find a talented troll. Go look for their work. You can never find their work. They don't show it anywhere. It's usually an anonymous, some weird name or a number, often just like a string of numbers. Yeah. Like a Wi-Fi password is their profile name. There's no face there, and then you click and try to find their work, and it's never there. The people who want to disagree with you and have a good conversation, and I love those, will always have their name, and you'll always be able to find what they do, and they'll back themselves. That's not a troll.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with debate.
No,
I mean,
no,
you don't,
that's great.
I mean, this is not a contest that everybody has to say how much they love your work.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen you debate with people in comments. But let's be honest. Who watches YouTube here? I mean, I would imagine most people. Okay. I want you to be absolutely honest with me.
Have you ever trolled any of us?
That wasn't going to be the question.
Whose username is Big Bad Bob?
How many of you have used the thumb down on something that you... Be honest. It was a bit unfair, really, because who's going to say they have? I mean, have you ever used the thumb down button?
Only on yours.
All right. Well, that's fair enough. I always wonder where those 53 came from.
That's my 53 accounts I've set up. Just
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Round of applause for Sean Tucker, please. So food is coming out. I thought we might open up the floor a little bit here and see if anybody's got any questions that we could discuss. So we'll start over there. Say your names first if you can, because that'll be much friendlier in the mix.
Hello there, my name's Simon. I've come with my daughter Mandy, all the way from the Black Country. And over breakfast this morning, we were discussing oblique strategies by Brian Eno. You know, you get stuck in some sort of rut and you need to get out of it.
God, this is the wrong podcast.
This is just to show the sort of level we're operating at. Here's a couple of oblique strategies from Mandy and Simon. This is one of mine. You are now 6.
All right.
Mandy's. I'll show you mine if you'll show me yours.
Right.
So, if I could put it to the floor, what would be your oblique photographic strategy to help Mandy and Simon for the first time ever get a decent shot?
God, I don't think I understood the question. Kev, what's your oblique strategy? I've actually been working out my obliques a little bit in the gym of late.
My oblique strategy
you can't see it.
Is 35 with 35.
Right.
35 pictures with 35mm lens.
35 pictures of 35. We talked about that last week, didn't we?
Well, we talked about 50 with 50.
50 with 50.
Yeah. 35 with 35.
Any more questions from the floor? Let's over here.
Paul Gallagher from York.
Hi, Paul.
My question, I'm predominantly shoot street photography and trying to kind of improve that. What's a good way of getting sort of honest, decent critique for your work? I mean, I guess it doesn't have to necessarily be street photography, whatever kind of thing you shoot, but you know, to kind of improve, what are people's recommendations with regards to getting critique on their work?
I think the perfect person to answer this question is actually making his way to microphone 3.
Good question. There are lots of places. There are lots of Facebook groups that you can go to get your work critiqued. The tricky thing is where are the good ones? Mm-hmm. And I think finding somebody whose work you like and respect is probably a good place to start. I think if you can find a photographer who's working in a way that you like, most of them I think would be happy to look at your work and give you comments. I get sent a lot of photographs by people, and it only takes a sentence or a paragraph to point out what they've done right, what they could have done better. So by all means send work to me, but also just the street photographers whose work you think is good and you aspire to being like. They're the ones who can tell you how to improve your game and your strategies on the street. That would be my approach, I think.
While we've got Nick Turpin here, let's see if we've got some more questions on shooting in the street.
Generally speaking, what's your do's and don'ts when it comes to approaching a photograph?
Do you mean in terms like pictorially or in terms of dealing with people on the street, or a bit of both?
Kind of, if you saw something like, okay, can't think. It's a screaming child down the
Like
left-hand
children
side.
or
something like that.
Okay.
Would you totally ignore that and walk on? And
Well, I think, obviously, you know, in the UK, we live in a democracy, so everything that happens in a public place is a matter of public record. So we're starting from that sort of legal perspective where you can photograph anything you can see in a public place. But that doesn't, you know, over the top of that, you kind of overlay your own kind of ethical and moral, you know, position. And I think you have to make your own mind up a little bit about that. I mean, there's a big spectrum of photographers out there. Some people who are quite aggressive, like, you know, Bruce Gilden perhaps, who sort of lunges at people. And then there are people probably a bit more like me. I like to work a bit like a ghost on the street. You know, people don't really see me. I guess my do's and don'ts. I don't photograph homeless people because they don't choose to be in a public place. Whereas the rest of us all decide to leave the house, and whatever we're wearing or whatever we do when we're in the public place, that's up to us. And I think if you get photographed, you know, then that's kind of, you know, fair game. I mean, you know, the children issue is quite interesting. Some of the greatest street photographs in history include children, you know, and it's a shame that we're sort of making a public record of photography now which excludes children, and I don't really see a good reason why, you know. But at the same time, you do have to be a bit careful, and you have to respect parents' wishes, and there is a sort of safeguarding issue, I think, with children. I mean, I do photograph children. I often will make eye contact with the parents and indicate, and you know, there are ways of doing it with sign language without ruining the scene. And then also I tend to shoot, you know, broader, bigger scenes. So children might be just one element of a much bigger picture. I consider myself a kind of tableau photographer. You know, shoot a tableau of figures in a scape. And so often the issue doesn't really come up because you know, I'm photographing 15 people, of which 2 might be children, so it's not too much of an issue for me.
That's similar to, well, in fact, it's identical to my kind of take on it, and because I get asked that question a lot as well. And you know, my answer to people is I would only really take pictures of something I would be comfortable being in that picture myself, and that extends to my kids as well. So, you know, if my kids are kicking a football around in the street or something, and somebody's taking a picture because it's documenting the street, then that's cool. You know, if a stranger comes up and takes a close-up picture of them as a portrait, that's different, you know, and then you'd want to understand why that was happening. But, you know, my fear for, or, you know, the fact that people ask these questions is concern. You know, it's cause for concern, because we're heading towards this culture where people automatically are skeptical about why you are using a camera, why you're on the streets taking pictures. And yet, you know, if you look at France, for example, and most of mainland Europe, where technically you can't do it without getting permission and stuff. Yeah, you know, we have all of the great history pictures of the past, and you know what happens when our grandkids go to school and they're like, yeah, here's pictures of the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and we got no more pictures of what it was like in real life because we weren't allowed to take any pictures. You know, and that's a terrible thing that could happen, and it's a real fear. And yet, the irony is, we've all got dash cams in our car. We're probably in this place being filmed a million times, and you know, it's all there. It's all out there. It's just that, you know, the
I think the change has been social media, the arrival of social media.
Absolutely.
So the thing is that in the past, when a picture was taken, it probably wasn't going to be posted for 100,000 people to see, and that's what's changed, I think. So it's that loss of control of the image of a child, you know, when a street photographer makes a picture, that's what's changed, I think. But also I think photographers, you know, as street photographers, we have to push back a little bit. I'm very, you know, keen on speaking to security guards and saying, actually, you know, this is a public place, I can take pictures here, or explaining to a parent, you know, I'm just making a historical record, I have my photographs in the collections of museums, and I'm not doing anything that should be vilified, you know, and just explain yourself and educate a little bit.
Do you
I
find
think that's a good process to be involved with.
Do you find as soon as you try and enter debate with a security guard that becomes the confrontation that you're trying to avoid in the first place?
I think you can usually tell from the first sentences how it's going to go, and very often I will ask to see the head of security, and I've in the past I've been up to the 15th floor of a tower block to speak to the head of security and got an apology and a promise that they will re-educate their staff. I mean, this has happened in the financial district of London, but you have to be very, you know, you have to keep calm. and explain the law and say,
Yeah.
actually, this is a public place,
Yeah.
public are coming and going. It might be privately owned, but if the public are coming and going freely, then it's a public place and I can take pictures there.
So Pat Gomez sent in a question, and I'll read the question in a moment, because question number 2 I want to aim at you, but he did talk about the rules of shooting the public in the UK. That does sound weird when you say that, doesn't it? The rules about shooting public in the UK. What happens when you've got a building that is supposedly copyright? You hear these people say you can't take a picture of this building, but you're on the street. The Eiffel Tower is a great example in France.
I think it depends on the country. So when I work in the States, for example, we do have to worry about property rights and get them cleared. But in the UK, I don't think you do.
No.
I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I think it only comes into play if your pictures are used commercially to start with. So if it's artistic use and the pictures you're making are just going to be exhibited or published, which most of mine are, then I don't think this is a problem anyway.
No.
It's the same as it would be with model release forms. I don't need to model release form my street photography if it's just going to be in a book. And so there's obviously a very famous case with Philip Lorca de Corsia, the photographer who. Where sort of precedence was set in law, where he won a case about that. So, that was in the States, but it seems to have had a reaching effect everywhere. And also, just Kevin mentioned that in Europe you can't take pictures of people in public places. You can't publish those pictures.
Yeah, that's
so you
right.
can take the pictures in France and so on. I did a project called The French, where I took deliberately to do street photography in France, and those pictures I publish in the UK but not in France. So just 20 miles of sea separates where I can and can't publish them.
Yeah.
And that was a deliberate act on my behalf to sort of make a point about that.
Did you initially, I know I did, initially panic when GDPR as 4 letters first made their way into our conscience?
Yes, there's been a lot of disinformation about this, I think. I mean, I wrote to the Office of Information, I think it was, whoever's organising it, and still haven't had a reply, specifically asking about street photography. I'm a street photographer, what are the rules here? To start with, I don't think that legislation was ever aimed at photography.
Yeah.
I don't think it was ever intended to be applied to photography. And also, I don't think a photograph of somebody in the street, which you have no date of birth, no name, it's very unspecific information. You don't know who that person is. Maybe, obviously, you have eye colour, hair colour, height. You might be able to determine ethnicity, those sort of details. But I think the fact that they are non-specific means that GDPR doesn't really apply.
Pat Gomez, then, he sent in. We've kind of dealt with the rules of shooting in public or shooting the public in the UK, but he said in a few months I'm going to be transferring to the UK. Now he's coming from Saudi Arabia. And where I would imagine
it's going to be a lot easier.
Yeah, it's going to be easier, Pat. I can promise you this is going to be like a walk in the park. So I also do photography as a hobby, and I think in essence he wants to do a lot of street work. He does say here, though, and you may not be able to necessarily comment on the particular camera, but he says, do you recommend the X100 to curb the attention of the authorities? It's not really about the camera, though. It's about the way you act, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you don't have to curb the behaviour of the authorities because you're allowed to take pictures in public places. So it's not really an issue. I mean, I would certainly encourage him to use an X100. To use a small, discrete camera in a public place allows me to take a frame and then see how a scene develops. If I use a big DSLR with a big lens that makes a big clicking noise, people generally see me, and I never get to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And so from my point of view, using a small discrete camera that's very, very quiet, and the X100 is absolutely perfect for that,
perfect,
from my perspective. You can use it with one hand. I often, when I'm on the street, I don't face the people that I'm on to photograph. I'll often stand sideways on and address, a different direction, and then I can take pictures sideways. Yeah, I would highly recommend that, the X100 or a similar small,
Similar small unit, yeah. Any other questions for Nick?
Hi, I'm Matt Greenwood, I come from Bath, and my question is about Instagram, sort of to all of you, particularly around street. So I only work part-time, and so my Instagram is sort of a higgledy-piggledy mess of whatever I want to put up, because there's no sort of pressure on it. But I was wondering if your Instagrams were purely personal and not just to promote a brand or for work or any of that, how would it differ, if at all?
Oh, wow.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That is a good question, yeah. This is actually something which I have to juggle, like with my website, with with my Instagram, with Twitter, all my social media, because I work as a photographer, a commercial photographer, but I also take pictures of family and I do my personal street photography. And it's quite often difficult balancing those things in one place, you know. I mean, I guess my Instagram is a blend of the two things, you know. It's the photography I love. I just put out there my best street photographs. It's the job of art directors and picture editors to see that and commission me to use it in different ways. It's a quite difficult question. I'm still wrestling with it myself.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
How many Instagram accounts do you have, Nick?
Do I have?
Yeah. Do you have any private little sneaky ones we should know about?
Well, I run several, but they tend to be for things like Street London, which is the festival that I run once a year, and then I have my Nick Turpin account, which is my personal street photography.
You're smiling. There is another one you're not telling us about.
I try to keep it to a minimum because what can happen is that social media can run away with you.
Yes,
you don't end up actually taking, being out, being a photographer. Yeah. You need to keep those things under control. So I focus on Instagram and my website primarily, and recently I've started doing a bit of YouTube teaching. But I'm trying to keep it to those three things. Otherwise, it can just,
I would say that if it wasn't for business, if it wasn't for work, I wouldn't have any of it. I would just close it all down and just...
So you wouldn't have a personal one?
No, I don't think so. I don't know, because like in the real world...
Stand by.
Warning. The people you know in real life, like not the Facebook people and stuff, you'd show them on your phone, or you'd show them at home, or you'd have a book or something. And so if it wasn't for this world that we exist in, or I exist in, and work and weddings and business and everything, I'm not sure I'd share much at all, to be honest with you.
But don't you find that it's a two-way street, that you're putting your work out there, but if you follow carefully, if you're quite careful about who you follow, I discover the most amazing street photography through Instagram. So it's coming towards me that I found the most exciting bit.
No, absolutely. I'm thinking completely based on if I was not a professional photographer. If I didn't have a business like that, that's my kind of thought process. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I go down the Instagram rabbit hole very often, and I'm just follow through, and then I get thoroughly depressed. And then switch the thing off.
I do want to ask Laura a question, actually, from Fujifilm, because, I mean, you look, obviously, one of your jobs is social media.
Partly, yes. Content creation.
Content creation. You deal with a lot of different photographers, don't you? Yeah. So how important is social media?
Who's your favourite photographer, Laura?
Well, I'm biased, Kev. But it is very important. I think now, as a brand, we want to put the best work out there, but it's a two-way street for us as well. So we feature people, they get seen by our audience. It's really important. And I think, arguably, it's one of the best places to find new talent as well. It seems to be quite a great breeding ground.
Well, that was going to be my next question, was do you go looking actively at Fujifilm for people that are posting and hashtagging?
Absolutely. We have a lot of people approaching us, but we find people through hashtag repost my Fujifilm as well, and people that tag the brand in things. And that is fantastic for us. We love seeing people's work, and we encourage people to share as much as we can.
And you just did a really nice week of pictures with Holly Russell.
Yes, lovely.
I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Yeah.
See, it works.
It works. We do a featured photographer every single week for the whole year. So 52 new photographers that we work with, and then we repost people probably once a day, and we have quite a solid social schedule. So it's good, but it's a great platform just to find new people, network. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Do you have your own Instagram
I do,
account? You do?
Yeah. I do have a personal one. I'm very bad for spamming Instagram. I shoot a lot, and I tend to just kind of post everything. It's a bit of a brain dump for me. Yeah. Any creative that I do, I'm just like, boom, 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 send it out. So, yeah.
What are the rules, Kev, generally, and Laura maybe on this, and how many times you should post a day on Instagram? Because
honestly, much like everything with social media,
it's not quite like the SEO thing that we're used to talking about.
No. But if you posted 5 pictures every day, and the marketing elements of it, with hundreds of hashtags and stuff, then the algorithm is just going to demote you for sure. Yeah. But if you're posting 5 pictures and the text you're putting with them is relevant and real, and you're conversing with people, then it would be fine. Yeah. Just do it when you feel you have something. That's the thing. Don't. remember the social in social media,
social
right?
media, yeah.
People forget
where's
the
merch,
social.
man?
Yeah.
New T-shirt needed.
You know, you'll get so much further by writing content in Instagram than by just putting 35 hashtags underneath. You know, I write a whole load of text about a picture, and then I'll answer the questions and stuff that come through it, rather than just hashtag this, that, this. Nobody wants to see that. That's just spam.
Ladies and gentlemen, nice round of applause then, please, for Nick Turpin. Okay, let's go back to some questions, and I'd like to open up the floor again and see if anybody else has any questions. Kev, your turn, I believe.
Okay, so I've got Brad Wakefield, who
he caused a storm in the Facebook group during the week, didn't he?
Complete and
he did that on purpose, and he's not here today.
He says, "Hey, my comments on the Facebook page aren't from a place of criticism." I think, no, in fairness, I think what you're both doing is really refreshing and positive. Yada 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 yada.
Blah blah blah.
Right. Okay. Answer the questions, and the reason why he sent these questions is because I said to him, "Well, we don't get many non-gear questions, so send some non-gear questions
in." He sent in like 6. He sent a year's worth from him.
There's 6 questions, so I reckon what we should do is pick people here to answer the questions.
Idea. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. First one though, we need hands up if you're a wedding photographer.
Okay.
Right. Okay, I'm going to go straight in front of us.
Yeah.
Question number 1 from Brad. As most people now claim to be a documentary wedding photographer, do you think this is just a cover-up for people feeling unconfident in talking to people?
I would say I'm a documentary wedding photographer, but I'm not scared to talk to people. I think it helps your subject feel more relaxed around you. So, like, if you're sort of standing and hiding behind your camera, I mean, I've been a photographer for quite a while, so I think from working in portraits, you want your subject to be relaxed, and then you can capture those moments happening around you. So probably not. No, I think you've got to, be adaptable and just work with who you're shooting. Still, just because it's a wedding and you're documenting it, it doesn't mean you have to hide yourself and not just capture it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a loaded question, isn't it? Not purposely loaded, but it's one of those kind of, I was once asked, is it true that you just give all of the pictures that are in focus to your clients? And I was like, well, it is true actually, but yeah, that's what we should have, is a new piece of firmware that just deletes all of the out of focus pictures automatically, and that's the culling done straight away.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? I'd be left with 2 or 3.
Okay, another wedding photographer, hands up. Okay. Right, we'll go with Steve, because Steve's helping us out.
Yep, Steve's got the mic next to him. You can answer this one.
If you weren't photographing weddings, what area of photography would you like to work in?
That's dead easy. Sport.
Sport.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely love to be a cricket photographer and spend all my time in the sunshine, drinking beer, well, a little bit of beer, and taking photos of cricket.
It's supposed to work, not drink beer.
Well, yeah,
cricket's not.
You didn't say that bit though.
Cricket is a sport.
No.
The only things that aren't sport, anything you can play in a pub is not a sport. So,
Anything-
so snooker, out. That's not a sport. If you can play something and be unfit, it's not a sport. Darts, not a sport.
Snooker is a great sport. Cricket.
Netball. No, netball's a sport. Of course it is. So yeah, cricket for you.
Cricket, absolutely, and football, but cricket would be my first love, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, who said that?
You need a 600mm lens, yeah.
600.
Yeah, probably at least, yeah. 450 in the Fuji.
Yeah, you couldn't exactly be a documentary cricket photographer, could you? Sort of running on with your...
Are we still talking about cricket?
Sorry, yeah.
I've fallen into a coma.
Sorry. Okay, question 2.
No, question 3.
Three.
So, not necessarily... Right, hands up. Just anybody, hands up. First one I see. Hands up.
Somebody's going to answer a question.
Right.
Over there.
Schilling.
Michael Schilling.
How do you cope with the backlog of editing when you're sat at the computer for days on end? Personally, it really does my head in. Yeah. And it's the worst part of my job. So you're a good person to answer this.
I do. I mean, I shoot maybe 15 portrait shoots a week. So we pile up all the shoots at the end of the week on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then Monday, maybe Tuesday is just pure editing. And marketing and all, doing other things. But we got quite a refined process for it, but it's a case of organising your week. So
yeah, but you get Martin to do it. That's your process.
No, I edit my own thing. I actually get Guy Gowan to edit mine, technically, in the process thing. But it's just a case of building it into your week, so you know on Monday you're always going to be editing, on Tuesday you're going to have a nice day off.
Yeah.
Can we throw this around a bit more? When do you do your editing? Is it a particular day? Let's go.
Glasgow Lee.
It's like University Challenge, isn't it? Glasgow Lee.
I tell the customer when they're going to get them, and that just, there's nothing like a customer arriving at your front door to make you have the images ready.
Yeah. And you do them the night before, though, don't you?
Yeah.
It's like homework.
It's like revision.
An hour before.
Yeah. Oh, I really must clean the oven before I do any work. You ever clean the oven?
Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Okay. Hands up if you think you would feel confident shooting a wedding with a film camera.
Hands up if you would feel confident shooting a wedding with a film camera. So we're going to move it around a bit. We'll go to the back first if that's okay, and we'll come forward with it. Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I used to shoot weddings with a film camera for about 8 years, so
it's fine.
I'm very comfortable with a film camera, and in actual fact, it was Fuji that convinced me to go digital before that.
Maybe we should extend this question. Would you feel confident to shoot with film again now that you shoot with digital?
I would, but my level of paranoia was centered around the fact that I had 3 film cameras around me all the time. So I used to have 2 with colour and 1 with black and white, and I never used to tell the bride and groom that I was shooting black and white. So they always thought they were getting colour shots, and then I'd surprise them basically with a set of black and white images. Not for throughout the whole wedding. I'd normally just shoot a roll of 24 or something like that, and just give them a little added surprise of black and white images, which normally went down well because they wasn't expecting it, and it was in a day when black and white had kind of lost a lot of market traction, as it were, and everybody wanted colour. That was a few years ago now. But I'd be fine.
Anybody else on that one? Come forward here.
So I shot a wedding in March, half film, half digital. And I think what's obviously quite nice is having I guess, we all have presets and how we know how to edit a digital shot. But when it's film, that's it. There are no gimmicks. There's nothing at it. It's your framing and your timing is just so key. You can obviously deliver. I mean, I delivered it digitally. I gave them a set of 35mm prints out of it, kept the negatives for myself, and it just has a little bit more pressure to it and stuff. But I think it helps me shoot digitally because I know how to shoot film. So you kind of always working on your framing and your.
Why did you do it? Was it a client request?
Yeah, I mean the groom was the advertising exec for Adidas and was like, we saw that you can shoot film. Would you like to do some? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
It's rare that you get a couple that will come along and who, I guess, know what film is, or go, I want my wedding photos. So just you'll turn up with your cameras and shoot, and that's the prerequisite. But for someone to go, actually, no, I really want that feel of an actual film image. You can't really reproduce that. We've all got whatever it might be. So and then it's really nice that when you deliver it and you go, I mean, I deliver everything online, but in processing it I was able to have everything digitally and deliver their photos and add a section. These are the ones that were on 35.
So did you try and make the digital images look like the film ones?
Not necessarily.
What film did you film it on?
I used Delta 400s and a Portra 400, so it was a bit overcast. So 2 rolls of colour, 2 rolls of black and white, and it kind of you know that you can separate what was film to what is digital very easily. In its that's my style and my edit for digital, and then you go, that is the roll of film, and that's like I say, that's what you're going to get from that roll of film. When it's digital you could do whatever you want through Lightroom or whatever you're using, but I think then again you're kind of distorting what you've shot. And I think that throws back to sort of being documentaries. Why would you then make it natural? Well,
I think you're a very brave man.
That was good fun.
Okay, final one from Brad. In my opinion, the gear doesn't really matter as long as you're confident with it and you get what you need out of it. Do you think you could shoot a wedding on a
smartphone? Well, there have been a few photographers that have done that of late, and of course now we've got we were talking about it last night, the Instagram weddings, yeah.
I reckon I could do it.
On your
Huawei. It's amazing. See, it's 4. Don't listen, Laura. Four little Leica lenses.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never charge for it, but if a friend was getting married or something, and they, actually, I'm going to a wedding in February.
As a guest, obviously, would you?
Yeah, as a guest.
Use that? No, you wouldn't. You couldn't.
Well, they haven't invited me yet, but I will go.
Do you know these people?
Loosely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I reckon it's possible. Wasn't it Jeff Ascoff always used to say that he wanted to shoot a wedding on his phone as well?
Yeah.
I mean, it would never be something I would do commercially or sell or anything, but yeah, I think realistically you could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got one more subject here, then it's the close of the show. I just wondered if we had any more questions, anybody wanted to ask any more questions from the floor, as it were, before we go to something that I wanted to bring in from Rivki Lokya. No? Oh, we got one from Nick. Nick, let's fire over to Nick.
I never do weddings. I've done 2 family ones, I think. So I'm a street photographer. But I'm curious, because most weddings are kind of the same format. So how, as a wedding photographer, do you avoid the sort of cliches and tropes of wedding photography to make your work, different, unique, make it stand out?
Yeah, I mean, they do have the same... you're right. Essentially, it's the same format, isn't it? Whenever you go to a wedding. I mean, we
Valium. It's Valium.
Valium.
Yeah. just one in the morning gets you through it.
I mean, weddings are made by people, aren't they? And you rock up sometimes. The wedding photographer's in the room here. You rock up to a wedding, and people are sitting there drinking tea. How do you cope with that and make something of it that they feel will emulate the work that they've seen on your website and the reason why they're hiring you? If I mean, I know myself, I fill my website full of people crying, and it's emotional stuff, because for me, my wife has this. I'm sorry if anybody's listening who's a client of mine. But she always says when we have just stop listening now. Good. When we have the client meetings at the office, my wife will always say when I come back down to the house, she'll say, "Did they cry?" And we have the phrase, "If they cry, they buy." And it's essentially it's true, because you're having and normally in a meeting, you're trying to pull their emotional heartstrings. Because that's the way that they're going to. That's the reason
Stop
they're
doing
going.
that.
They're well.
Oh, sorry. With your hand.
It's a heartstring. You're terrible. It's a good job this is not on YouTube. But I've completely forgotten where I was now. But that's. And that's I think, Nick, that's a big problem when the format of a wedding is expecting the high emotion and it doesn't necessarily deliver. So then you just have to be factual, don't you? You just have to show them what that day looked like.
I think that's why it works. For vast majority of people shoot as documentary wedding photographers. But for me, if I had to do any kind of the formality of the traditional wedding, I just would never do it. I couldn't do it.
No.
So for me, of course we do a little bit of it, but the formal photographers who set things up, including things like cake cutting and all that kind of stuff, week in, week out, then that definitely isn't a job for me. I see every wedding as a completely different experience, and it's very much like street photography, but it's in an enclosed space. And there are certain things that are going to happen, like the first kiss and stuff, but you can still approach it in a completely candid way.
Yeah,
that's the only way that I can get through it and do it and enjoy it.
Does anybody have a last couple of questions before we?
I don't do street photography, but I agree with Kevin. I think in a wedding is like a kind of it's similar to street photography in a way. I mean, you just get they are all the same weddings, and yet they're all completely different. And it's the people that make them different, and it's all the things that go on around the edges. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I absolutely would. I don't think I've got the confidence to say to a client, I'm not going to do your groups, but I absolutely always try to get them to not have those cheesy cake cutting shots. I say I just want to be in the background when you're signing the register, and literally have very, very few moments like that. But all the rest of it is really about it's just, I think it's the best job. It is in the end the best job, because you can be just so creative. You've got all life there. You've got young, you've got old, you've got tears, you've got arguments, you've got tension, you've got beauty, you've got ritual. You know, what's not to like, really?
Absolutely. Glasgow Lee.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm sort of polar opposite to Kevin and this lady. To me, the wedding's about me. And so any kind of group shots, I see it as an audience to I see it as an audience. And to me, when I was saying to a family the other day, as you walked in, you know what the day's going to be like with how you're greeted. Like if you're greeted with open arms, you think this is going to be a cool wedding.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, the reply to his question is, I think weddings have a heartbeat, they have a rhythm, don't they?
They do.
And part of our job is knowing what's happening in 5 minutes' time. And there's certain bits where you know, like when they come out of the church, you know that's going to be a grip and grin shot, as Kevin calls it. But sometimes the church police will get them to go out another door, and I'm thinking we've just, you know, I think
Church police?
Church police.
What churches do you go to?
Church police.
Do you mean the verger?
Yeah.
Right.
But I think a wedding needs to flow, and it's a bit like street photography, is that they look for certain things, whether it be reflections or that sharp light. I think in weddings we look for those emotional moments that happen at key times.
Okay, I wanted to bring in Rivki Lockyer. Most people are on the Facebook group here, aren't they? I would imagine. Did you see that thing from Rivki Lockyer, who is from the States, who was saying, you know, after 17 years as an executive at a corporation, I was successful and enjoyed my job, worked very hard. Recently had the opportunity to take a 7-month sabbatical, and she tried professional photography, and it went really, really well. Do you remember this post from her?
Yep.
I ended up getting into some pro work. I also really developed my skills in a way that I was never able to do when it was just a side thing. My sabbatical came to an end, and I'm back to my corporate job. I do love my job, and I'm fortunate to be able to provide for my family so comfortably so we can enjoy life and set money aside. But I feel very, very sad to have left the pro photography work behind.
Presumably she's on a decent wage, and so
yeah, well, she's sending her children to, and she didn't mind us saying this, to private school in America, which is not cheap.
Yeah, and well, I'm sure there are some photographers who are sending their kids to private school.
Yeah.
But yeah, the chances are it will be. And you know what I always say to people is, you know, don't just dump your day job and go straight into being a full-time photographer. You know, you need to understand the business elements of it. You need to run. You know, you need to look at the income and the profits that's coming through the business, through the photography element of your life, and treat it as a business, separate entity to your personal life. You know, so many people will just do photography on the side, and that income just falls into their general bank account or their general disposable income, and they don't understand the actual business element of things. And so whilst they might think, oh yeah, I'm going to get I don't know, let's just say £1,000 for a wedding. If I do 2 of them a month, that's £2,000, right? No, it's not. Of course it's not. It's a lot less than that. And you know, £2,000 seems like a reasonable amount of money to have a month, but actually it's not a reasonable amount of money to live off when that's your income stream. So you know, there's a hell of a lot more to it than just, you know, the seeing of the beauty of photography. It's 10% taking pictures, 90% doing all of the other stuff.
Who's recently left jobs here? Has anybody left a job here to take on photography full time? Anybody recently here done that? No. Yeah. Let's get that mic to the, so you can sort of share your experience of making that transition.
Essentially, I don't know whether I should say lucky or not, but I got made redundant, so I had a financial cushion that allowed me to ramp up my photography as a business without feeling the pain of a significant drop in actual income, and I had to cut my cloth accordingly. I've had to make some changes to my spending habits because they're different now. And financially, I mean, I love what I do, and it's like from a creative point of view, I'm a lot happier than I ever was doing a corporate job, and I don't miss, you know, emails at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night and being on the phone at midnight talking to people in Australia to deal with IT-related issues. But you do miss the fight, and there's no way of getting around it unless you are incredibly lucky you will have to make a financial adjustment.
Anybody here want to go the other way though? The photographers now are thinking about going back. I know you are, Kev. About thinking about going back into to the corporate world. Anybody here? Lee again. Glasgow Lee.
Yeah, I would. I think I sent a message to you a few months ago that's never been read out, but
so we have a filter for your question.
Yeah, I think I feel like I've lost my hobby because like today I've got no interest in taking pictures. I'm just like burnt out, and I would like to get that back. And I don't think I ever could because I think I'm unemployable now. But but I would, if some charity out there.
So,
wanted
Lee, how many weddings did you shoot last year?
55 last year. Yeah.
Stunned silence on that one.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to wrap in a second. Laura, would you mind just coming round and joining us on a mic? Laura.
Well, yeah. Okay. So, Laura, welcome to the couch. Well, no. The only reason I was going to get Laura up was to see if anybody had any questions for her.
Get nice and close to that microphone, though.
Sorry.
That's it. Because then we won't be able to hear you.
You can't ask her any technical questions. You can't ask her any questions about cameras in the future. You can ask her anything else.
Okay. Any questions about Fuji? We've got lots of Fujifilm users in here. Come on, we must have some questions about Fuji. Right, over here, straight away.
What would you say is sort of the brand personality of Fujifilm versus the other sort of big camera manufacturers? What makes Fuji Fuji?
Excellent question.
We are definitely a family vibe. Yeah. We are all about photography. We're about photographers and about the art form. So I think what makes our cameras different is that they are designed for people that want to shoot pure photography and just get on with that. So for me, that's the key thing. It's the best company I've ever worked for, and I'm not saying that because I work here.
But
genuinely,
you're only about 19, so you worked in a shop and then
worked
worked
for a good few companies, honestly, and it's absolutely lovely. The people make it; they are the best. And also just the customers as well. Everyone's so lovely, and there's a real community vibe. So that's what does it for me.
Why do you think the personality of Fujifilm as a camera brand is different? Why?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, to be honest. But once you start, I guess, shooting on the gear, or you meet the people that work on the team, there's just a vibe. There's an atmosphere there, which is so different, which is just lovely. And for me, it was like stepping into a family when I started working here.
Yeah.
And also just meeting some of the best people I've ever met. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Did you shoot Fuji before you joined Fuji? Is that an unfair question?
No, it's not. So I shot Canon for 10 years,
right.
DSLR, and I had Sony was my first mirrorless. I had an X20, a Fujifilm X20. That was my first Fujifilm camera. And then I had sort of Leica and dabbled in a few other things. And then I had the X100F. That was my gateway drug. And then when I started working here and I got to use the cameras, I completely got sold on it. I hopped in everything else. I bought myself an X-T3. I've got my XE3, which lives on me.
Yeah.
I'm a one camera, one lens kind of girl. So I've got my XE3 with my 35 f2. That's what I shoot 99% of my photography on, because it fits in my bag and it's always on me. And I could never do that with a DSLR.
No.
So yeah, I'm very much a believer in it's the camera you have on you. And for me, Fujifilm became the camera I could always have on me. So.
Any other questions, Steve?
Well, it's more of a comment really than a question, but I think people don't realise actually what a big company Fujifilm is. They view Fujifilm as a smaller imaging company, but Fujifilm is a massive chemical company, it's a life science company, it's a cosmetics company.
Yep.
In my old job of selling scientific equipment, I used to sell a lot to Fujifilm, and it's a big company. It's as big as the Canons and Nikons, if not bigger. So people sometimes forget how big a company it is. So the fact you've managed to keep that sort of vibe of a bit more than a hobby, almost like a club, it's fantastic how you've managed to do that, and please keep it going forever.
Thank you. No, it's
single-handedly.
It's all down to you.
It is very interesting. We've got a medical division and we've got graphics. We've got all sorts of stuff. We do have cosmetics, as Kev mentioned. But what's interesting to me is how it all feeds back into it. So there's chemicals that go into the cosmetics that they've discovered from developing film. So there's some really cool, kind of interesting things. But yeah, we've got like massive X-ray machines that we sell to the NHS. It's crazy, but yeah, no, it's a great company and very diverse.
Have you thought about Kev maybe being an ambassador for the cosmetic brand?
Definitely. He's doing some modelling for us at the weekend.
We need a lot. Yeah, I think you'd be good. Any more questions?
Warning.
Oh, somebody said the B word.
Somebody said the B word.
I think that seems like a good time to wrap this show up. We had enough of Brexit last week on the show. Sorry, Anna's got a question. As long as it's
can I just
of course
ask
you can,
you?
as long as it's not Brexit.
Not Brexit, absolutely not Brexit. But if you had to say 3 reasons why I would go with a Fuji mirrorless camera as opposed to a Sony, a Nikon, or anything else, could you tell me maybe more on the camera basis rather than, I'm sure you're a lovely family and Nikon say the same. And, yeah.
I'm not the most technical person, so bear with me, but the reason that I love the cameras and they work best for me is because the ergonomics are completely manual, which makes it really fast to shoot with, fantastically easy to get to grips with, and once you kind of have a feel for the camera, it almost becomes like muscle memory, so nothing's really in the menu, it's more on the body, so you can move the shutter speed without like taking your eye away from the viewfinder, which is fantastic. And then lastly, I have to say, the family vibe is part of it. The customer service is fantastic. We have a field team that are out there in stores all the time running events, and the support is just amazing. So that's what I would say really are my top 3 reasons.
The repair and everything is top notch. It's like a 24-hour turnaround for repairs.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Right, that's we've come to the end of the show. I'd like to thank Sean for being a sort of a cameo guest, and Nick Turpin as well. So Sean Tucker, Nick Turpin. I'd like to thank Laura as well. Obviously, you know now if you're listening to the podcast who to write to with a No, that's not fair. We shouldn't do that. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. And that's it from our listener meetup in Brighton, with a day ahead of chatting and meandering through the modern city's famous lanes to stop and sample some of Brighton beers. You can see what they did here, home brews like Chocky Wocky Brewha and 431. Our thanks this week to a bunch of super folk who've made this one so much fun and possible. Neil and Remy in the Palm Court restaurant on Brighton's Palace Pier for the space to record the show. Nick Turpin, Sean Tucker and Laura Ross for their guesting cameos. Steve Vaughan for additional production support, and everyone who came along to just socialise. The main theme is by Blue Wednesday, with additional music from the amazing Artlist music catalogue. Next week we're back in the studio digging in for the winter that lies ahead, and our guest is from Canada, Brian Caporici from Sprout Studio, talking about the business of photography as we head into a new decade.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.